Hello, I'm Robin. Welcome to Bookspin. We are now into the start of November, and that means it's monthly wrap-up time once again. So let's take a look back at what I read during the month of October and my TBR plans for November. I'm not going to dwell too much on the books I read in October because I have actually posted reviews of almost all of these books, except for the last one, the most recent one, which I'll talk a little bit about in a minute. So if you want to know a little bit more about any of these books, just look up the review videos on my channel. Now, I started off the month by finishing off The Green Millennium by Fritz Leiber, which was a highly entertaining and highly quirky novel from the 1950s with quite a bizarre premise, in which a young man who is kind of out of his luck, just lost his job, he comes into contact with a mysterious green cat at the start of the novel. And this cat seems to project an aura of profound contentment and happiness to whoever goes near it. And he becomes entranced with this cat, and this basically sparks off a whole chain of events which leads him into a kind of bizarre adventure. It's a little bit difficult to summarize this novel in a nutshell, really, but it is very entertaining. I really enjoyed it, but I wouldn't say it's my reading highlight of the month. That would have to go to the next book I read, which was Professor Dowell's Head by Alexander Belyayev, which is a classic of Russian science fiction horror. I've been reading a few sci-fi horror books recently for Halloween season. So this one was originally published in the 1920s as a short story before being published as a full novel a few years later. And it's the novel version which I read. It's very entertaining, very fast-paced, and quite thought-provoking. Kind of mad scientist theme going on. I do highly recommend this novel. So after that, I moved on to The Furies by Keith Roberts. So this has got an amazing premise for a sci-fi horror story. It's a post-apocalyptic scenario in which the world, which has already been devastated by nuclear bomb tests gone awry, causing mass earthquakes across the globe, right? In which an invasion of giant killer wasps takes over the planet, pretty much. And it's a story of survival in this harsh post-apocalyptic world with these terrifying creatures attacking and enslaving humans. An amazing concept for a sci-fi horror novel. I really enjoyed it on the whole, but there were a few issues in the way this story was executed, I think, but still a decent read. And then I followed this up with another great read, The Rats by James Herbert, which was originally published in 1974. This is a classic of pulp horror, and it deals with an invasion of mutant killer rats in East London. I don't really have much more to say about this book other than it's a very fast-paced, enjoyable, pulpy classic. Because I've talked about this book quite a lot already. I did the discussion video with Ira, and this was followed by a review. After The Rats, I read The Cats, which was clearly a derivative in the same tradition as The Rats. It's another animal attack invasion story, also set in London. This time round, it's a mutant species of cats which are taking over the streets and killing people. This story was not very well written. nowhere near as entertaining or as thought-provoking as The Rats, which it was clearly inspired by, but it was quite entertaining in a kind of ridiculous, pulpy way. Finally, the last thing I read was Who Goes There by John W. Campbell. This is the novella that inspired The Thing, the classic John Carpenter film. And I must say, I was unfortunately a bit disappointed in this. I went in with very high expectations because I really like The Thing. I think it's one of the greatest sci-fi horror films of all time, at least that I've seen. The source material, I mean, it does have a great concept. It does have a great atmosphere, set in a kind of remote Antarctic research station, right? And great themes, great sense of tension and horror even. So it does have a lot going for it. But the prose felt clumsy to me. The dialogue was stilted. The characters were forgettable. And I didn't really have a great time with it, unfortunately. And this is a rare example of a clear case where the film was much better, in my opinion. And just to confirm that thought, I decided to re-watch the film after having read the novella to see if it was as good as I remembered it being. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think the film stands up. I think it does a much better job of capturing the essence of the story in an engaging and horrific way with relatable characters in a way that Campbell didn't quite achieve, in my opinion, although he had the ideas going for him. Now, this particular book is actually a collection. It's followed by 6 short stories. I haven't moved on to the short stories yet. I'm hoping that I'll have a bit more luck enjoying those than I did with the novella. We'll see, but I'm not going to go onto those straight away. So let's have a look at what's in store for November. November, I've decided to do a kind of themed reading month, Novella November. So I'm just going to focus on novellas during this month. And I've picked a few novellas out of my collection which I think would be suitable. And in fact, I've already made a start on one of these. That is Michael Moorcock, Behold the Man. This book has been on my TBR for quite a long time. And I'm not even really sure if this really qualifies as a novella. This book was originally published in a shorter form in, I think it was New Worlds magazine, and it won the Nebula Award for Best Novella in 1967, I think. Moorcock then later expanded this into a novel form. That's the book that I've started reading. I'm a few pages in. I'm not really sure if it's strictly speaking it's a novella or not, but it is a short novel. It's 140 something pages. So I think it qualifies. In any case, it's very interesting. It's a time travel story with religious themes, and the protagonist travels back in time to the time of Jesus. According to the blurb on the back, it's the most controversial portrait of Christ ever painted, or perhaps the most, it says. So yeah, I've been reading a little bit so far, and from what I've read so far, about 20 pages in, I'm really enjoying it. So I'll let you know how I get on with this book. So, what else could I read for Novella November? So, I've got a few options here. I'm not really sure which of these I'm going to prioritize, in what order I'm going to read them, but we'll see. First up, I've got this book, Agent Tchaikovsky, Terrible World's Revolutions, which is a collection of 3 of his novellas. The novellas are, Ironclads, Firewalkers, and Ogres. So, this is the only Agent Tchaikovsky book in my collection that I have, which I haven't read yet. And he's a pretty consistently good author, I think. So, I think I might enjoy this. This is quite a chunky collection. These novellas are sort of on the longish end. I do think it's a bit of a boring cover design, though. But, yeah, I can certainly give this a try. I've got another novella collection, also from Philip Jose Farmer, and this is called The Alley God. So, this is a book I got earlier this year. This is 3 of his novellas. I think these were published originally in the 1950s. Yeah, 54, 59, 53. And these are The Alley Man, The Captain's Daughter, and The God Business. I do, generally speaking, really like Philip Jose Farmer's work, so I will happily give this collection a try. Some of these have pretty bizarre premises. I've also got a novella by Ian MacDonald called Tendaleo's Story. This isn't actually my book. This copy was lent to me by a friend over the summer, who was actually recommending not this particular story. It's a story called Watching Trees Grow by Peter F. Hamilton. This is actually a double, a Gollancz double. Each novella is about 100 pages long. So yeah, he was recommending this particular novella by Peter F. Hamilton, but I've already read this story. I read it in his collection Manhattan in Reverse, and it is a very good novella. It's a kind of murder mystery that takes place over a really long period of time. It sprawls over hundreds of years, epic in scope. But that's not the story I'm going to read. If I get round to it, I'm going to read Tendaleo's Story. I've never read Ian MacDonald before. I know nothing about this story. There's no blurb to read, so I don't really know what I'm getting into here. But that's quite a nice cover illustration to tempt you, right? And according to Locus, it's evocative and emotionally satisfying. Okay, another novella that I will probably read this month would be The Dead Lady of Clowntown by Cordwainer Smith. This is the next story in my Cordwainer Smith reading project, the 16th story in the rediscovery of man. And this is also the longest story in this collection, and is one of only 2 novella-length stories in this collection. I have read this story before. I don't remember much about it, but I do remember it being pretty good. So I'm looking forward to the reread. Expect a review of this one at some point soon. In addition to these, there is one novella which I'm very interested in reading. This is a new release called The Dagger in Vichy by Alistair Reynolds. This is a new release that was released earlier this summer by Subterranean Press, and it's described as a kind of sci-fi fantasy novella about a troupe of travelling actors in kind of medieval style future. That's about as much as I know. I don't actually have a copy of this book yet. I do have it on order from Amazon. I they haven't sent it out to me yet. So I'm hoping that will arrive soon. If I have any problems with the order, I might just end up downloading the ebook, because this only a limited print run was produced by Subterranean Press. So it's a little bit hard to get hold of. Anyway, this is definitely one that I want to read. Alistair Reynolds, great author, and he's never let me down before. And this is quite an interesting premise. So yeah, those are the novellas which I'm looking into to read this month. And that's about it. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more sci-fi content.